beyond into the exclusion of every reasonable doubt. But on the refusal, if you've refused a first time and you refuse a second time, well, that's going to be easier to convict you of a double refusal.
Yeah.
Because, you know, the evidence is there that you refused the first time, and now you've refused a second time.
And it's probably two different officers observing similar,
Well, the refusal, the officer doesn't have to prove that you were impaired. The state just has to prove that you refused before, and now you refuse
but it's like
again.
Yeah, but it's kind of like a pattern. If you have more than one situation where you seem to look impaired, you seem to be impaired.
It would not be relevant in a trial, right? So if the state decided to take the second one to trial, at least on the DUI, the state cannot say, or the officer can't testify, well, he was stopped before for DUI.
Oh, right.
That's not, you can't bring that up.
You can't bring
That's
up a
extremely
pattern.
prejudicial.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yes, you cannot bring that up, right? Yeah. That's not, it's not going to be, it's not relevant to this particular, to this current DUI.
Knock one down for the TV lawyers, please. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's not, so trial lawyers, it's lots of rules, lots of procedures, and it's a little more complicated than television makes it out to be. Right. That would be an automatic mistrial.
Yeah.
Right?
It doesn't fit in the 60 minutes that the show runs,
no,
right? Yeah.
No. It's a little more complicated than they make it out to be.
Okay, so let's say you are arrested and you're booked, basically, What should a person do? I mean, is it true about you get one phone call type of thing? Are you?
Well, you get phone calls. You can make a phone call if you want to call your attorney or call your mama to bail you out of jail. I guess if there's
Would you suggest that? I mean, I guess it depends on what you're being charged with, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who your first call would be. Do you? Calling a lawyer should really be one of your first calls, depending on what you're charged with.
Depending on what it is. So if you're charged with something simple like disorderly conduct, a second-degree misdemeanor. Call your mom.
Yeah.
And then, you may be released on your own recognizance. Or if the judge decides to set a bond at $500 and you don't, you can't pay it, call mommy to bail you out of jail. Right? It's not really that, not that, yes, when you commit crimes, all crimes are serious, but it's not, in the grand scheme of things, that's not the worst thing you can be charged with, right?
Yeah. I guess the whole point to that is the fact that be cooperative, do what you're asked to do. You have the ability, you have the right to refuse to do certain things. You have the right to keep your mouth shut. Mm-hmm. That's why they tell you to keep your mouth shut.
Right.
Don't incriminate yourself. Just know that every action that you take has a consequence. So be ready to deal with the consequence too,
Right.
So I think that, and that's basically in life, most everything, but especially in this kind of situation. We talked about DUI, but there could be many other things, expired driver's license, anything that you can be caught with. But I guess the main thing is, be respectful, do what you're asked. If you're not comfortable with doing something, you have the right to refuse.
You do.
You need to know that there's a consequence to that.
Yeah, you have the right to say, officer, I'm going to exercise my constitutional rights to remain silent, right? And you mentioned something that I wanted to discuss. Now, when people get arrested, they go to jail and they make phone calls. There are signs that says, typically, there are always signs. You're being recorded. And most people don't pay attention to that.
Oh, no.
Jail calls. When I was a prosecutor, I used to go back and listen to jail calls because sometimes you get great evidence from people making admissions. Remember, whatever you say can and will be used against you. Now, when you say something on that jail call, you're not being questioned by a police officer. Let's say you're talking to your mom or a friend. Yeah. It's like, oh, man, I was wasted. I had like 5 drinks. And you're like, that's an admission that the state is going to bring in to convict you with, right? Because you just admitted that you were doing something completely stupid. You were drinking and you got behind the wheels of your vehicle. So be cautious. Pay attention to the signs. It says you've been recorded. Yes, you are being recorded. Be cautious of what you say because it will be used against you if it's really good evidence, right?
No, those are my favorite parts. Every time I see it, because I'm a huge true crime buff, the ID channel's my best friend, 48 hours, all that stuff. And my favorite is when they tell you that they're being recorded and they're trying to say things that they shouldn't say and trying to use code. Listen, that to me is the funniest thing in the world. But anyway, that's good, because if you are impaired and you may not really pay attention to the sign, know that any phone call, you exercise your right to be silent, to the minimum on a phone call also.
Let's also be responsible and say the best defense to DUI is do not drink and drive. Please don't drink and drive, right? Do not ever, ever have any amount of alcohol and get behind the wheel of a vehicle, right?
Yeah.
Because you are in an object that can kill and maim.
Yeah. In a matter of minutes.
An enormous amount of damage, not only to yourself, but to innocent people. So please do not ever, ever drink and drive, ever.
And actually, I don't see why that would occur so much today with Uber and Lyft and everything we have available. And and it's funny because I have a group of friends and we have designated drivers. I mean, we know which one is not going to be really drinking. I mean, be responsible, be responsible for your actions,
absolutely.
right?
My wife and I, when we were able to go out to a restaurant and have dinner, and if we have any amount of alcohol, even one, we would not drive. We would, if we didn't Uber, we would sometimes we'll call our kids to come get us.
Okay, that is, I'm happy you just said that because I think that's hilarious.
Yeah, we will not drive.
Because I don't have kids, so I don't have a kid to call. But Uber. One of my best friend's daughter is learning to drive. And the first thing when she got her learner's permit, I love this child. She knows us so well. She was so happy that she texted me. I sent her congratulations. She texted me a picture of her license and then, of her learner's permit. And she goes, now I can drive you and mommy around when you guys are drinking. And I was like, free Uber, right?
That's right.
She's like,
have to put gas
she goes,
in the car.
I can't wait to pick you guys up. She's, and I love the fact that I have friends' children I can call. I mean, that sounds really bad. Yeah. But, at least, I don't have kids. There's not really anybody I can call to pick me up. So I would have to Uber. Thank God that I'm not.
Phone a friend.
We're
happy to help. Call us. We'll come get you.
John, can you come pick me up, please?
Hey, if you need me, I'm there.
I'm on the dive bar in the corner. No, just kidding. So, okay. So now you've been arrested, you've been bonded out, or you on your own recognizance or you paid bail. How do you prepare for your first meeting for a lawyer? What, as a lawyer, do you expect that person to have for you to be able to do your work?
Well, it depends on the situation. If we're continuing with that scenario where, you had a DUI, well, he or she doesn't really have to bring much to my office. Because I can look up the case based on your name and bring it up and see, the police report and, information. Because when you've committed crimes, that's public information. So anyone can go and see your mugshot.
Yeah, I know. I've looked at myself. Right. I mean, I don't have a crime, but I've looked myself up to see what
they can see information on the case, unless there are certain things that are confidential, which the clerk would block access to it. But for the most part, everything else is just public domain, and anyone can look at it. So I can bring it up. Now, for other cases, like let's say family law, we also do family law cases here, like dissolution of marriages and so on, where you're dealing with more intimate details of people's lives and personal information. So, you're not going to have access. The general public is not going to have access to that type of information. You may be able to see what's there, but you're not going to have the actual documents. Right. Whereas in criminal cases, you can actually download
the document itself.
Right. Some documents.
Right. So let's say it is something with family law, dissolution of marriage, or children advocacy. Child's not being treated well, or needs to go to one parent, not the other, or how you want to handle that. So let's say for dissolution of marriage or divorce, right? because I had to look that up to make sure that I understood that dissolution of marriage was divorce. Side
It
note.
is.
Okay, yeah, because I thank God I haven't been through that either.
Right.
So, sometimes, big words, dictionary. It's okay, guys, if there's big
right.
words to pull out your dictionary, because I have a dictionary on my phone. And if you ever watch the video, you'll see that I have my phone with me just in case. So let's say the divorce. On their first meeting with you, what should they bring, besides themselves and their story and the reasons, right?
Yeah. Typically on the first meeting, a potential client, obviously, they're not, unless the person is they've already made up their minds and they've spoken to other attorneys and have gotten some ideas of what they need, they're not going to bring, a lot of documentation with them. But at the very least, if you drove over, you're going to have your driver's license and,
the
things
basic
of that
stuff.
nature. Basic stuff. And, the first, before you hire an attorney, you speak with that person, make sure you're comfortable and, he or she knows what they're talking about, right? Competent to do whatever you need done. And if you're comfortable with this attorney, you're going to hire the attorney. Well, that attorney is going to let you know, what you need for dissolution of marriage. Lots of documentations you're going to need, like income tax returns. We may want to see, marriage license, birth certificate.
Yeah,
for kids.
and if you have children and your, especially your income and things like that.
Right.
Now, you said something important, and if I had a half a brain right now, I'd remember what you said, because it flagged and now it's gone. It had
It'll
to
come
do,
back to you.
Yeah, well, eventually. Oh, being comfortable with the lawyer.
Right.
So I'm interviewing, because basically, as a client, you are interviewing like you would, anybody. Somebody's doing work on your house or something. You're not going to always take the first person you meet, or maybe you do feel that comfortable with someone. I've made that choice sometimes. So how should I, as a client, feel about my lawyer? Like, I don't know if I'm phrasing that right, but like, being comfortable and being able to talk to that person is very important, to the lawyer. But as a client, what questions should I ask a lawyer that I'm planning to, or an attorney I'm planning to work with,
Well, I guess you can, it's okay to ask the person, well, how many years, how long have you been practicing, I suppose, and are you comfortable taking on my case? And I think the most important thing, well, perhaps not the most important thing, but is that you're comfortable with that attorney. It's like a quasi relationship, right, with you and this attorney.
You're going to work together for a while, so.
Yeah. Something's in my mouth. So if you're not comfortable with the person and your personalities clash right away, that's a good sign that maybe that's not the attorney for you.
Yeah.
Right. And some people, like I said, some attorneys think, well, the blunt approach and, is the best way to go. And, if that person is barking at you and, you may not appreciate that. And,
especially since you're probably there for something that is on the top 5 crappiest things that have happened to you, and you're here for that. How about I would think that having not only knowing how long they've been practicing, but knowing how long they've been handling your type of case,
right, the particular issues that you have. It's okay to ask. If I don't take on every case that clients call for if it's not an area that I've been practicing in. For instance, I do not do let's say bankruptcy. If a potential client calls me with bankruptcy issues, I'm not going to take on the case. I may try to be helpful and refer it and say, okay, I know there's such and such attorney. I can I'll refer to this person. But you just pretty much want to make sure the person's competent in that area that you need help in, whether it's a family law situation or criminal law situation. It doesn't mean, for instance, this attorney's been practicing for, let's say, a couple of years. It doesn't mean he or she's not competent to handle your case.
No, of course.
They may be more competent than the person who's been doing it 20 years now, hasn't stayed up to date on current issues and topics in the law, and who's not going to give your case much attention, really, because young attorneys oftentimes are very hungry.
Yeah.
They want to get things done, and you can study and learn and get it done, and oftentimes they may be able to get it done for less expensive and be equally competent.
Right.
With that attorney who's been doing it a decade or more, right?
Yeah.
So I would say, yes, sure, competence, but comfort level.
I think
as
that
well.
would be a big one. Yeah, that
right.
would be a big one, because you're going to share some of your you're going to share details. You want someone on the other side that's a lawyer with high level of humanity. You know what I mean? I mean, at least for me, if I were to need a lawyer or an attorney, I would really need to have someone on the other side that is competent in what obviously in their job, but also that has empathy for what I'm going through at the moment. Because when I'm frustrated, I cry. When I'm sad, I cry. If I don't get fed on time, I cry. So, there's going to be tears involved. I need to have someone on the other side of the table that's not going to freak out when there's crying involved, right? So that would be for me. So now, let's see what, I had a list of all these, these questions for you. Oh, actually, so I wanted to ask this, and I don't know if you can answer it or not, but I thought, what has been your most interesting case up to now? And can you talk about, I know that you can't give specifics, which I understand, but.
Most interesting. I don't know if I've had, like this extremely memorable case. I mean, in the family law arena, the facts are often very similar. Sometimes the issues may be a little different. For instance, like we've discussed domestic violence issues. There you may have more situations to deal with, and you may have to provide more services and help a person get more services than others. But they're kind of very similar. On the criminal defense side, I can't really say I've had that many that has been so memorable that they left the lasting impression on me. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know either.
Yeah,
but I'm right now reserving the right to ask you that question later on. Okay? Because as time goes by,
one will come to me. Maybe that's one I'm forgetting right now.
Yeah, and and if you do, I would really love to hear about it, because I will talk about. I mean, I won't force you to sit next to.
That's true. I do. Well, I have one that was. It's kind of funny. And it goes back to when I was a prosecutor, though. But it's kind of amusing. This young man was being chased by police officers, right? And I'm going to summarize it. And he broke into this older lady's house, older African-American lady. And this lady, she's funny as hell, because I had to interview her. She keeps a samurai sword in her bedroom.
You said you didn't have anything memorable. Right? Come on. An older lady with a samurai sword.
So this kid broke into her bedroom. This lady proceeded to grab her samurai sword to turn him into sushi.
Oh my God.
Right.
I would have loved to have listened to that interview.
It was very amusing and entertaining. And she was like, I wasn't going to play around with him. And I was going to show him he broke into the wrong house. But needless to say, this young man was running for his life, running into the cop's arms to get away from this lady. And I think she was close to 80 years old.
Good for her.
Yes, and that's what I told her too. Good for you. But she was like, yeah, I'm not going to tolerate nonsense. And I'm like, yep, you shouldn't. But anyways.
That is a lot more to it. I like it.
But yeah, this young man was running literally for his life.
Actually, that's a good episode for anybody that's writing a TV show.
Man.
Running making you run back to the cops because you bump into an older lady.
He was running back to the cops because this lady was going to hurt him. She was going to put a hurting on him.
Oh my gosh. Oh, I would love to interview that lady. That's hilarious. Good for her, man. And as soon as you're saying that, I'm thinking to myself, well, okay, so I'm gonna go. This was not a question I had, but so when all this apocalyptic quarantine stuff happened, at the beginning when everything seemed like, now we're kind of getting used to it. We don't like it because it's diminished our way. It's actually done two things. It's made people that are living with family in some instances much closer because you're having to learn to deal with each other. On a longer periods of time. That could work both ways. But also at the beginning when at 10 o'clock at night there were like no cars out, like all of a sudden you can go outside and it wasn't bunch of sirens and a lot of vehicles. You don't realize how much noise is out there until the noise is diminished.
Yeah.
And I'm a huge fan of The Walking Dead, so I've always been waiting and preparing for the apocalypse. Right. And I learned a few things. One is that I don't have to be the fastest runner. I just have to be faster than one person that I can knock down.
That's right.
Okay. So I've learned that works for me. Do you know that I went on Amazon and purchased a taser because I needed to be able to protect. It's the funniest thing, and I don't know what I'm going to do with that because you have to be really up close with somebody to be able to tase them.
Well, it depends on the kind, right? I mean, they do have those that kind of. I don't know if they. No.
This
police
is
officers.
The police officers have the ones that are like a gun that shoot out the taser. Right. Yeah. No, this is just a little handheld one that I can put in my purse. Okay. So I have that, and but it's like I got it in pink, because I'm a girl. So I have the pink taser, and I always. Since I was really young, my dad, when I started driving and working at 4:30 in the morning at the airport, my dad gave me a switchblade to have in my car. I had to use it once.
Okay.
I was at a stoplight. It was about 4:45 in the morning, and I was at a stoplight where a fire station was, and this guy, I tried not to roll down my windows, but I had the window open enough to get air, this guy stuck his hand in there and grabbed my chain.
Wow.
I had the switchblade between my legs because I was driving and I had it here. I jabbed his hand.
There you go.
I jabbed his hand and then he yelled at me and he ran away. And I was like, I'm like, fireman! Because I was right at the fire. Because I had to call somebody, All I know is that the poor firemen were probably sleeping because no one, came out. And I drove home and I was like, I need to disinfect this. It didn't turn out to be worse than it was. But then I thought to myself, if a police officer were to stop me, I had this switchblade, would they believe me that what I was doing is trying to protect myself instead of, that I'm not in the process of committing a crime, that it was for protection. It wasn't something, I ever thought I would need to use, but my dad drilled in my head so much, be aware of your surroundings, this, do that. And, I wonder if I would have been arrested if this guy would have called the cops on me for stabbing him.
Well, he was committing a crime when he reached into, that's called a burglary battery, bat.
Oh, okay.
So you should have called on him and have him arrested.
I think
the evidence would have been that officer, he was reaching in. I stabbed him with my little knife here. And if they catch him and he's got this, the proof on his hand, hey, buddy, yeah, it's you. I can identify that it's you. She described you. And, yeah, you have the cut on your hand, right? So
I'm telling you, I think about some of the things I did. And obviously I was much younger. That's not something I would do now. Now I would give him my chain. Do you know what I mean? Like I would probably
right. Hey, I would be, you need it more than I do apparently.
Yeah, I wouldn't fight it like that,
right.
But when you're young, your instincts are like, I'm a badass. Let me handle this, It's not always the best option, right?
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you something that, now that we've talked about serious things. Okay. So I have a question, and there's a story behind why I'm asking this question, and then I will release you from your obligation to sit here with me. Does Florida allow conjugal visits?
Good question, and I've actually, and
I've been curious.
The short answer is unfortunately, I suppose for inmates in Florida, no. There are only a few states that allow conjugal visits, and I think maybe a handful. I don't want to say 5 or more, maybe less than 5. California, New York, I believe Connecticut, Mississippi used to be one of them. They may be. I think Mississippi actually, based on what I've read, started this whole conjugal visit thing. They went as far. They used to provide prostitutes, even from what I hear. Whether it's true or not, I don't know. But
okay.
I don't know how they were. I don't want Mississippi.
Basically, I don't want to know.
But I think they've discontinued that practice. But yeah, but Florida does not allow conjugal visitations at all. I mean, you allow visitation with your family members or friends. Normally, you have to have a list, people who can visit you. But, you know, no intimacy.
Okay, I have to tell you my story, okay?
Sure.
There was a time I had a friend that was incarcerated, and they'd been there for a while, and I would visit because, you know, they were made a huge mistake that they made in their life, but they weren't bad to me, and they were a good person. And I would visit with his mom, or I would visit and I'd be on this list. So I would visit quite often, and you get to see the same people visiting the same people. So you know, you see each other outside. You're like, hey, how's your son doing? How's your husband doing? Whatever it is, right? So you know, I would come in. I was on the list, and and then there was one lady that I would see all the time, and I noticed. I knew that she was visiting her husband, and because I talked to her outside in the visit, you know, before they let us in, when they're going to search you and make sure that your purse is, you know, make sure you don't have a purse, you're not a purse, but whatever.
You know, drugs, weapons.
Yeah, they check for all that, right? So I knew that she was visiting her husband. I knew that they were still married. I started noticing that she was pregnant because all of a sudden you know, you could tell that it wasn't, you know, she ate too many burgers. There was actually a baby there, right? So I asked my friend, I'm like, did so-and-so, because it becomes a soap opera, because now you're into this, you know, this is like a TV show, and you're like, did she get pregnant? I mean, I asked my friend, and he's like, no. He goes, no, that's she's pregnant with, you know, his kid. And I'm like, how the hell? And then he's like, don't ask. So I'm really curious how something like that would happen in a state where conjugal visits are not allowed. And he's been in jail for much longer than, you know, 9 months, you know, and she's only 3-4 months. Do you know? Because your
guess is as good as mine, but I guess I can guess. Maybe he has some connections, right?
Well, in my mind, I went through a whole, you know, TV show script. You know, I could have written, you know, an episode of Law and Order on this. You know what I mean? Because I went through, you know, smuggling sperm and, you know, I was like, wow.
You know, and I suppose the people, the deputies who are guarding inmates are human beings like anyone else.
Yeah.
I think if you have an inmate perhaps who's well behaved, maybe they are willing to help you a little more than others.
It's all speculations.
I don't want to speculate too much, because then if it's not supposed to happen, that person is putting his livelihood, his job in jeopardy, right?
For someone else.
Right. And
I needed to ask that, because I found that that is something. I mean, it's been years now.
As far as I know, Florida does not allow conjugal visitation.
For all I know, that baby's in college now. But anyways, you know, it was something that it made such an impression that it's something that I've never forgotten. And actually,
you should have asked her.
You know, how
did you guys manage?
Yeah, you know, I didn't want to know. I really didn't want to know, because I think that if I liked my imagination better than anything she could have told me. I don't know if that makes sense, right? Because once someone tells you exactly how they did it, it becomes this fact
Right.
that it's much better for it to be a fantasy, you know. So, you know, they always say sometimes your fantasies are a lot better than what happens in real life, right? So we'll keep it like that. But I wanted to know if
let your imagination run wild, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I don't know. John, you're getting to know me. You do realize that there's, you know, some issues there when my brain runs, my mind runs wild.
You're creative, in other words. You're very creative.
There you go. I like that. That's such an attorney. You just attorneyed me, man. But we're good. John, I wanted to thank you so much for joining me today and for, you know, taking the time. I know you're a busy man, and I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
So you're located in North Miami?
That's correct. We are in North Miami. And
how can they contact you?
Well, they can give us a call at 305-570-2271, or you can visit us at 1125 Northeast 125th Street, and that's suite number 227.
Perfect.
In North Miami.
Well, thank you so much.
You're quite welcome, and I enjoyed our conversation.
And you know we're going to do it again when I come up with better questions.
That's a plan. I'm going to hold you to that. Thank you.
All right. Hey, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Stay safe, stay sane, and we'll talk soon. See you later.